Imagine, if you will, a scene straight out of a dystopian nightmare. Russian troops, muscles straining against the cold tarmac, shoving a colossal 170-ton behemoth, the Il-76 cargo plane, across an airfield. No engines roar to life, no machinery hums to assist. Just the scrape of boots on asphalt, the grunts of exhaustion, sweat mingling with frozen breath as an empire's weight crushes spirits. This isn't history's relic, it's 2025, and Vladimir Putin's vaunted airlift titan lies dead in its tracks. Has Russia's mighty air force truly regressed to pushing aircraft like Stone Age nomads? This jaw-dropping tableau unfolds not in forgotten archives, but on a contemporary runway where soldiers carry the burden of what was once supposed to be technological supremacy. Picture the Il-76, a four-engine marvel designed for global dominance, now eerily quiet, engines dormant, no tugs or fuelers in sight. Only raw human effort propels this giant forward, feet gripping slick pavement as curses echo through the fog, the air thick with the stench of desperation and inefficiency. It's more than a logistical blunder, it's a stark exposé of Russia's fractured military core, begging the question, why resort to manual labor for a machine meant for modernity? Recall how this bedrock moment reveals hidden fractures. Soldiers exert every ounce to shift the plane, embodying an empire's unyielding pressure. Yet why? Skilled technicians, vital for upkeep, engine fixes, and vehicle operations, are absent, redeployed by Putin's commanders as cannon fodder in Ukraine's trenches. Imagine engineers and radar experts, trained for skyward triumphs, now sinking into Donbass mud as grunts. Russia's sharpest aviation minds squandered, leaving a skeletal force to heave 170 tons by hand, regressing to primal pushes that mock 21st century claims of tech wars. In transforming allies into burials, Putin has hurled his own forces back to prehistoric tactics, as this runway fiasco vividly illustrates. Building on that tragic push, delve into origins. As invasion bells tolled, forecasts heralded Russian skies ruling Ukraine within 48 hours. On paper, dominance shone, air power ratios favored Moscow tenfold. Yet reality torched those predictions. Jets plummet in droves, not solitary flames but misty and whole squadrons, verified by sources like Oryx through tangible wreckage photos. Consider 353 downed aircraft, fighters, bombers, transports, choppers outmatching entire national fleets of France or Britain. Entire air fortunes reduced to Ukrainian steppe scrap heaps, each loss extinguishing decades of ingenuity in every MES-34 or MES-35 that crumbles. What if I told you bombs now rain from deep behind Russian lines, pilots retreating like frightened shadows? Air supremacy doctrines? Shattered by fear of defenses that weave lethal webs. Gone are dogfight legends, in their place, remote bombardiers, yet even this evasion fails as craft spiral down. Prestige, too, ignites under fuselage ruins. Pause here, while Putin's excuses ring hollow, a bizarre twist emerges in billion-dollar blunders. Massive MW-29 Bears and MW-22 and 3 bombers, nuclear carriers meant to intimidate. Felled not by elite enemy stealth but cheap M600 drones, parts ordered online, truck-delivered novelties that pierce defenses like needles through cloth. This sets the stage for humiliation's peak, Ukraine's spiderweb sting, where intelligence slipped cardboard crafts past radars, exposing stealth as Halloween fakery. Orders evaporated Egypt, Vietnam vanishing, leaving Frankenstein jets like the M1969 Mark 35, a patched-up MiG-29 Frankenstein lacking true invisibility or network prowess, stuck in 1980s ruts while foes soar in F-35s, dreaming of sixth-gen wonders. Sanctions choke parts and ships, export dreams crumbling to American, French, South Korean rivals. Wars toll, not just battlefields, but commercial annihilation. Yet the deepest scar? Irreplaceable lives. Training a fighter ace demands a decade and millions, untold airborne hours. Elite veterans perished early, ambushed by manpads in low-altitude bravado. Cockpits now crewed by novices, rushed grads or aging recalls, fingers fumbling, reflexes dulled. Ground teams sent to slaughter further cripple fleets, unchecked engines erupt mid-flight, errors ground planes without gunfire. 50 years of expertise traded for fleeting trenches. Across trenches, Ukraine's ascent defies odds, from air nothingness to Western gifts, F-16 soaring, Rafales awaited. Visions of supremacy till 2035, a turnaround that underscores inversion. In one quagmire, skies darken, in another, they brighten against tyranny. How does a titan stumble so completely? Alright, imagine staring at a scene that shatters illusions of power, a hulking machine of war grounded by sheer desperation.
Could a mighty empire really grind to a halt, pushing its dreams of dominance across the asphalt with bare hands?
Picture the sweat, the grunts, the empire's weight-crushing hopes beneath boots that slip in defeat.
This is the tale of Russia's skies collapsing, from unbeatable force to frantic farce, revealing the hidden rot at its core.
Previously, we glimpsed a shocking paradox: brave soldiers shoving a 170-ton behemoth, the Il-76, across a runway, echoing forgotten wars. Now, delve deeper into why this symbol of Russian might can't soar, exposing how brilliant minds became cannon fodder.
Ever wondered how a superpower's prized air fleet ended up as scrap heaps scattered across Ukraine?
What if I told you 353 jet lifelines were snuffed out in a blink, not by thunderous dogfights, but by clever defenses humming in the dark? Feel the chill of radar screens blazing alive, the acrid smoke of exploded metal wafting into the lungs, each crash a thunderclap echoing Putin's grand boasts as hollow echoes. Previously, we saw pilots turned into remote bombers, dropping payloads from afar in cowardly retreat, while modern tech crumbled under outdated flaws. Now, uncover the irony: how billion-dollar bombers, meant to strike fear globally, fell to cheap drones buzzing like angry hornets.
Can you fathom the humiliation? Stealthy giants, hailed as invisible horrors, spotted glowing on enemy screens like abandoned relics?
The rough plastic of spider drones whirring in the shadows.
Their artificial brains outperforming radars sworn to be unbreachable.
Taste the bitterness: alliances shattered, orders vanishing into the ether, leaving Russia grasping at air as export dreams evaporated into tensions and shortages. Previously, we've painted the pilot crisis as a gaping wound, elite flyers eradicated early, replaced by rookies fumbling in chaos.
But the true tragedy? Technicians vanishing into muddy graves, stripping the Air Force of its lifeblood, maintenance crew that once caressed engines now wielding rifles in feudal trenches. How did a vanguard of innovation regress to shoving titans with manpower alone, risking mid-air explosions from neglect?
The stench of unburned fuel lingering, the tactile jolt of metal groaning under stress. It's the empire devouring its own future, wings clipped by a war's insatiable hunger.
What twist awaits as Ukraine rises with jets that promise sunlit skies once more? When the invasion of Ukraine started, many believed Russia's sky dominance was unstoppable.
They claimed the Russian Air Force would seize control within just 2 days. On paper, it seemed inevitable.
Russia's air power was 10 times greater than Ukraine's. Yet, the reality now shatters those illusions completely.
Russian aircraft are not just being shot down one by one, they're being destroyed in huge fleets. Using data from Orex, the most trusted source for verified losses, we see the shocking truth.
These are not guesses but confirmed wrecks.
The numbers are staggering. The Russian Air Force has lost exactly 353 aircraft. This tally includes many fighter jets, bombers, transport planes, and helicopters. Putin's forces have destroyed more aircraft than the entire air forces of countries like France or the United Kingdom.
Imagine that. An entire air force wiped out, reduced to piles of scrap metal across Ukraine's plains.
But these aren't just pieces of metal, they symbolize the loss of decades of engineering mastery. Every fallen Su-34 or Su-35 isn't just a machine, it's the collapse of Russia's aviation legacy.
But the tragedy runs even deeper in how these planes fell.
Because of these catastrophic losses, Russian pilots can no longer conduct modern air superiority missions.
Fear has taken hold.
Ukraine's sophisticated radar and missile systems have created an impenetrable shield.
Russian jets don't dare approach the front lines anymore. Instead, they drop bombs from hundreds of kilometers away, safely behind their borders, and quickly retreat. The legendary skill of Russian dogfighters? Gone.
They become mere remote-controlled delivery vehicles, cowardly sentries instead of warriors.
And even this desperate tactic is failing.
Aircraft are crashing and burning at an alarming rate. But it's not just the machines falling, they're symbols of Russia's broken reputation. Putin insisted he was modernizing his military.
Yet, Russian aircraft are outdated relics. Their avionics systems are primitive, heavily dependent on commercial GPS. The pilots?
Many are amateurs, hurriedly trained or old veterans recalled from retirement.
The tragedy is worse there. Now, let's delve into the most disturbing irony.
The war's biggest secret is how the mighty Russian air power, once feared globally, has been turned into a fragile, crumbling empire. Imagine the sound of jets falling silent, the crackling of old radios, and the smell of burnt fuel. The once formidable sky guardians are now grounded.
How did it come to this? The full story might just blow your mind. What if I told you that Russia's most iconic aircraft, once symbols of power, are now nothing more than drifting wrecks?
Their legendary fighters, built to dominate the skies, are falling apart before they even take off.
Yet, the most shocking part isn't the wreckage, it's what's missing on the ground and in the sky. The real catastrophe is the human cost, the lost expertise that no factory can replace. Russia invested billions into massive bombers like the 295 Bear and 222 cubic meters that were designed to carry nuclear missiles.
These flying giants were meant to terrify NATO, with Putin himself threatening dominance from the skies.
But ironically, the fate of these behemoths wasn't sealed by enemy missiles.
Instead, they fell victim to $600 drones, made from parts bought online and transported by civilian trucks. Ukrainian intelligence launched a daring operation, infiltrating Russia's heartland with simple drones crafted from cardboard and plastic, equipped with artificial intelligence.
The world watched in shock. Those supposedly advanced radars that boasted invisibility? Totally blind. Russian aircraft, once thought invincible, lit up on radars like carnival pumpkins.
The illusion of technological superiority crumbled instantly. After that exposure, countries that had considered buying Russian tech changed their minds overnight.
Egypt cancelled their order. Vietnam withdrew.
No one trusts a product exposed in combat.
But the real irony?
Russia's flagship fighter, the MiG-35, failed spectacularly.
Marketed as a cutting-edge marvel, it's nothing more than a Frankenstein creation. The Russian Air Force took the old MiG-29 fuselage, slapped on a new radar, renamed it, and called it a day.
Yet, this aircraft has no stealth, no modern network combat capabilities. While the West is flying fifth and even sixth-generation fighters like the F-35 and F-22, Russia's trying to polish decades-old tech and pass it off as new. The industry's collapse due to the ongoing war means they can't find the right parts or chips. Their once thriving export market now belongs to the US, France, and South Korea, leaving Russia's aviation dreams in tatters.
And here's the twist: while Russia's war efforts crumble, its iconic air power is fading into history.
But the most irreparable damage isn't just the broken jets or lost factories, it's the destruction of human expertise.
Human pilots, the lifeblood of any air force, are irreplaceable.
Training a skilled fighter pilot takes over a decade, hundreds of millions of dollars, and thousands of flight hours. Many of Russia's best pilots, experts in their craft, were lost in the early days of the conflict, falling to shoulder-fired missiles, their experience taken with them into the grave. Today, Russian cockpits are filled with inexperienced, hastily trained pilots or personnel dragged out of retirement. The ground crew, those vital technicians, have paid a tragic price for their country's ambitions. Sending maintenance teams into combat zones to repair advanced aircraft means risking their lives, only to come home to still burnt wreckage.
The truth? Russia's aviation empire is decaying in slow motion, its wings clipped not by enemies, but by internal chaos. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, Ukraine's air force has transformed. Once insignificant, they now fly modern fighters like the F-16, with France's Rafale on the horizon. Ukraine's skies, once dominated by Russian jets, are turning into a new zone of confrontation and hope. The tide is turning, and what's left of Russia's once mighty air armada is nothing but a reminder of a fallen superpower, its legacy shattered, replaced by the relentless resilience of its adversaries. What if I told you this isn't just about aircraft? It's about the collapse of an empire lost in the clouds, grounded by its own mistakes, and decimated by human loss. The question remains, can a nation rebuild its flying giants, or has the age of Russian air dominance already ended? The destruction of Russia's aviation industry runs deeper than mere scraps of metal. While the nation can rebuild aircraft, buy parts from distant lands, or weld together broken pieces, the true loss is irreplaceable. The real damage lies in human resources, experienced pilots who have given their lives in the relentless battles over Ukraine's skies. Training a combat pilot is a painstaking process. It takes at least a decade, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and thousands of flight hours. Russia's elite pilots, the specialists who once commanded the skies, were sacrificed early in the conflict. The bravest flew low over enemy territory, relying on their skill and daring, only to be hunted down by shoulder-fired missiles, deadly. Their loss is the deepest wound, impossible to heal. What now occupies those cockpits? Young, hastily trained pilots with limited experience.
Many are hastily graduated or recalled from retirement, their reflexes dulled by age.
The tragic irony?
The very soldiers pushing the planes on the ground are a mirror of this decline. The scene we saw earlier, a line of soldiers straining to move a massive aircraft, captures the essence of Russia's crumbling air power. Without proper ground crews and skilled technicians, these planes are destined to fall. It's a stark truth, Russia has effectively cut its own wings. Sending maintenance crews into combat zones has robbed the nation of its aviation future. These technicians, the backbone of operational aircraft, are lost to the front lines, leaving behind engines that sputter and systems that fail. Today, many planes crash not because of enemy fire but due to technical failures or pilot error. The once proud Russian air fleet, built over decades, is now vulnerable, a shadow of its former self. Putin's strategic gamble has cost not just territory but also half a century of aviation mastery. Meanwhile, across the battlefield, Ukraine's air power is transforming. Starting from almost nothing at the war's outset, they now operate cutting-edge Western technology. F-16s soar through Ukrainian skies, and soon, French Rafale fighters will join the fight. Their pilots are trained to NATO standards, adapting, innovating, taking initiative. They are learning how to reach beyond survival and dominate the sky. What's the secret? It's in the mindset. Ukrainian pilots aren't just flying machines, they're embodying a new approach. Flexibility, initiative, modern tactics. They've turned a near defeat into a new era of air dominance. The question remains, can Russia's battered, aging fleet recover? Or has Putin's obsession with old technology sealed its fate? The future of these skies hangs in the balance. Imagine the scene, soldiers straining against a 170-ton aircraft on a barren runway, their boots slipping on cold asphalt, muscles burning from the weight of a failed empire. How did Russia's sky masters fall so low? We saw Russia's Air Force lose its vaunted planes to cheap drones, its pilots flying like scared drones themselves. But the real echo of defeat is in Ukraine's rise. Ukraine's forces, once grounded, now soar with Western gifts. F-16 fighters pierce the clouds, and Rafale jets follow soon. President Zelensky's deal with Macron promises air dominance until 2035. Yet, it's deeper than metal. Ukrainian flyers train in NATO ways, quick to act, sharp with tech. They strike boldly, while Russian comrades just wait for commands. Numerical edges vanish against this precision. Western radars, missiles, networks lift Ukraine far beyond Russia's grasp. As Russia clings to old war styles, Ukraine crafts new hybrid feats. Drone swarms dance with F-16s, a lethal world that spells Russia's doom. What if this dance signals the end of an era? Picture the crunch of boots pushing steel, sweat dripping onto gray concrete, the hum of idling engines mocking their plight. We opened with troops shoving that Ilyushin and Il-76, a proud giant now stranded. Putin vowed Western superiority, but he's wrecked his own force. Techs dead in mud, flyers worn out. Once sky kings, now a weakened colossus, terrorized by cheap devices, export doors slammed. Decay creeping through graft, blunders, endless wars. Smoke over Ukraine's fields isn't just wrecker, it's empire myths aflame. Putin shouts wins. But skies reveal the truth, speaking English now, not Russian. Was sky loss just the start? Feel the earth's tremor below, mud-sucking boots under rainy skies, faint gunfire rumbling far off. Tragedy hides a grander tech ruin in trenches. Recall Putin's war vows. Economy and grit falter against tech wonders. Drab T-14 Armata tanks, hailed as fourth-gen beasts, hide from view, missiles popping shields uneasily. New doctrine fails in the fight's brutal face. Will mud swallow Russia's boasting? Sense of fuel and fear mingle as drones buzz overhead, twisting fate in unexpected nets. Take a close look at the battlefield. What you see isn't from 1941, nor part of some ancient army. This is Russia's armored front in 2025. Instead of cutting-edge tanks, there's a line of rusted relics. T-54s and T-55s, armored coffins built in the days when Stalin was alive, now struggle to survive. How did Russia's pride turn into a museum display? Remember the grand parades in Red Square, the spotlight on the T-14 Armata tanks. Promised as the future of armored warfare, unmanned turrets, active protection. Russia claimed it would leave NATO behind. Yet, as the echoes of those speeches fade, the truth hits hard: those tanks are nowhere to be seen in battle.
Instead, a different kind of war machine dominates.
Now, the battlefield is filled with what can only be called turtle tanks. Engineers with no modern technology are welding metal cages and rough armor onto aging tanks. No sensors, no targeting systems, just brute force protection.
The turret won't rotate. The engines are barely functioning.
These hulks shuffle forward, trembling and clanking, trying to hold back enemy fire with old, battered steel.
Do these vehicles look like winners? Or relics from a nightmare?
The situation only worsens. Russia has rummaged through dusty storerooms. They've pulled out decades-old tanks, T-54s and T-55s, metal graveyards from the Cold War era. These tanks, built during Stalin's time, are fighting today's modern threats.
Putin's army is relying on these ancient machines because modern weapons have sucked the life from their supply. Sanctions have blocked essential parts: thermal vision, advanced fire control. Optics, the very heart of modern warfare. The largest tank fleet Russia ever assembled? Now, it's a museum collection, a shadow of itself.
Against modern fightings like the Leopard 2 or the Abrams, these tanks have no chance.
Their survival rate? As slim as an ant's against an elephant.
The arms race that was supposed to secure Russia's dominance has become a last stand of rusted iron.
Why did this happen? How did a superpower's armored might collapse into a junkyard of yesterday's technology?
The answer lies in the choices made at the top: funds diverted, technology stolen or banned, and a leadership blind to reality.
The heavy metal of an empire? Now, just scrap metal waiting for the next battlefield. And beneath that, what's truly lost? The human talent: engineers, technicians, soldiers, whose skills can never be replaced.
In the shadows of these battered tanks, the real tragedy lurks.
Russia's military might isn't just crumbling, it's decayed from within.
The engines of progress, the brains behind the machinery, are gone. The front line is no longer a battlefield, it's a graveyard for dreams of victory.
And as the rusty armor clashes and groans, an uncomfortable question remains: will Russia's old monsters finally be the end of its military legend?
We began with soldiers shoving a massive IL-76 plane across the runway, sweaty hands gripping metal, boots scraping asphalt, the stench of desperation in the air. The Empire's weight crushing their backs. But why? At the crowd roars, pride shattering under the weight of failure. What if I told you this is just the tip of the iceberg, the Kremlin's dark secret slamming the door on Russia's might? Picture this: the Kremlin treats tanks and soldiers like disposable toys, grinding them into dust without a second thought. Smell the oil-soaked mud of trenches, feel the icy bite of cold steel against trembling fingers. Who mans these beasts now? Who digs in those Ukrainian fields? At war's start, terrifying VDV units charged forward, elite commandos, Russia's deadly spearhead. Commercial videos showed them smashing bricks, firing with godlike precision. Where did they vanish to? The twist hits hard: wiped out in reckless assaults at Hostheim Airport, Bucha, and Irpin. Putin burned his finest trained forces in arrogant blunders. Like Air Force aces, the brains and brawn of Russian ground troops lie dead in the dirt. Sensory details flood in: the boom of distant artillery vibrating bones, the sour tang of fierce sweat on uniforms. No more elites. Stormzy units filled the gap, prisoners bribed with false freedom, recruits rushed through hasty training, handed rusty rifles after mere weeks. Feel the uneven grip on cold metal, hear the confused shouts echoing in chaos. Russia's army morphed from pros to gangs, tactical smarts evaporated. Soldiers admit it: commanders hurl these greenhorns as cannon fodder to spot Ukrainian positions. Goal? Not land. Just wasting enemy ammo, valuing bullets over their own lives, a doctrine that chills the soul. This is Russia's twisted playbook now. But hold on, what's the hidden front nobody talks about? Electronic warfare, once their trump card. They boasted blinding NATO comms, jamming GPS systems like Krasika for spark terror. Yet on the battlefield, utter breakdown. Radio screeched nonsense, drones swirled blind, radars blacked out. Generals couldn't reach colonels, colonels couldn't command tanks. Imagine the roar of jammed frequencies, the panic in darkened cockpits, the acrid smoke of malfunctioning tech. Chaos reigned because of their own invincible gear. What monstrous irony, turning allies into enemies in the fog of war.
Stay tuned, you won't believe how the West stole the skies next.
Last we saw, the brilliant electronic warfare hailed as unstoppable morphed into a nightmare, jamming their own forces, silencing commands in a haze of static and smoke. But buried deeper is the tragedy of tank legions, once unstoppable, now relics crumbling under sanctions.
Imagine the world's biggest tank army, transformed into a graveyard of rusting monuments.
Sanctions choked off thermal cameras, fire control systems, modern sights.
Feel the grit of old T-55 shells jamming, hear the wheeze of aged engines failing. A T-55's odds against a modern Leopard 2 or Abrams? Slim as an insect's pluck against a charging Rhino.
Vibrations rip through the cabin.
Metal groans under pressure. Electronic warfare didn't just disorient foes, it blinded Russia's own side, radios choking on self-inflicted noise, drones crashing in confusion, radars flickering to black. Generals yelled into dead air, colonels issued ghost orders. The battlefield stench of burnt circuits and damp fear clings everywhere.
But doom deepens for the tank force, a museum army hobbling forward against beasts like Leopard 2's roaring advance.
Will Putin's handouts keep them rolling, or is the crash inevitable? This isn't just war, it's a parade of humiliation. What if Ukraine's drones already lurked over the horizon, ready to turn armor into scrap? Buckle up as the ground shakes with betrayal. Russia boasted about having the world's most advanced electronic warfare systems before the conflict. They promised to dismantle NATO's communications and scramble GPS signals. Yet the reality was shocking. Their so-called powerful systems, like Krasika 4, spun out of control, causing chaos on the battlefield. Instead of disrupting the enemy, their technology turned against their own forces. Radios went silent, drones lost contact, and radars became deaf to friendly signals. The army's commanders couldn't communicate with their units.
A general was unable to relay orders to a frontline soldier. The chaos escalated, planes were mistakenly shot down by their own defenses, troops accidentally bombed their own positions. It was a colossal failure, a giant machinery that blinded itself. Meanwhile, Ukraine gained a strategic advantage. Thanks to Elon Musk's Starlink satellites and secure encrypted tablets supplied by Western allies, Ukrainian commanders had real-time battlefield data. A Ukrainian lieutenant could watch live footage of a Russian tank on his tablet, while Russian officers struggled with paper maps. This disconnect, called not just a technological gap, but an era gap, revealed the true state of Russia's military decline.
Look at the entire picture now.
The Russian Air Force relies on aircraft that are pushed onto runways. Their ground forces are equipped with tanks from the 1950s, patched up with chicken wire. Their elite fighters have been replaced by prisoners, hastily conscripted and poorly trained. Communication systems are collapsing, further weakening their chain of command. The image of Russia as a superpower, defying the West, remains only in propaganda. In reality, the army is mired in stagnation and exhaustion.
This once mighty force no longer matches NATO's technological edge.
It persists only because of its nuclear arsenal. But on the battlefield, it's an empty shell, depleted of strength and credibility. Putin bet Russia's future on this fragile military setup. In Ukraine, he lost not just territory, but the legacy of half a century of military prowess. The only remnants are hollow patriotic speeches broadcast through propaganda channels, masking a crumbling empire. The shocking reality, the once glorious Russian military is no longer a force to fear. Instead, it's a ghost of its former self, blinded, broken, and on the verge of collapse.
Behind this facade, what's truly at risk is the future of a nation that once commanded respect. Can it survive the coming storm, or has its fall already begun?